Welcome to another episode of Seeing Them Live, a podcast featuring memorable concert stories from live music fans. Everyone has a concert story, and hopefully, one day, we'll hear yours.
And what was really funny was I was in the lobby of the theater on the phone, and this little guy walks across in front of me, stops, and is talking to somebody, and he's got a Midnight Special t-shirt on. And I didn't think anything of it, and I go, hey, cool t-shirt. So the concert starts, and it's Burton Cummings. I didn't even recognize him. He's this little dude. He's in his 70s, but I didn't even recognize him.
This is our second annual Seeing Them Live year-end concert review show. We've assembled a panel of guests who have appeared on previous episodes of this podcast. As I mentioned in the intro last year, this idea was conceived separately by two previous guests, Art Gregg and Jessica Catena, who are both with us today on this show. So without further ado, I'll briefly introduce all of our guests, and then we'll hear about their 2025 concert experiences. So we'll start with Eric. Eric is an award-winning writer, director, and producer of documentary films, features, and shorts. His films have been screened at film festivals and independent cinemas all over the world, broadcast on television, and streamed online. In 2022, his documentary, Life on the V, the story of V66, was added to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame's library and archives. And you definitely want to check out his blog called Green's Party on Tumblr. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Jessica Catena is the creator and host of the Music Notes with Jess podcast, a weekly show featuring the latest trending news in the music industry. Jessica began her podcast 6 years ago and has recorded over 300 episodes covering a wide range of topics and music genres. Summer is a PhD nurse practitioner and an avid concert goer. Art Gregg owns two antique shops in Chicago specializing in 1950s through 1970 furniture. Dawn Fontaine is an executive assistant in the neurobiology department at UMass Chan Medical School in Worcester, Massachusetts. She likes watching horror movies and listening to vinyl records, cooking, hanging out with her cat, and seeing lots of live music. She's been to 55 concerts this year, and Dawn will also talk about her new role with the Philadelphia-based band Soraya and a special trip she took on a private jet with the Rolling Stones. Steve Pothel is an accountant and a live music fan. He is featured prominently in my book, Ticket Stub Stories, a memoir of live music, in the chapter called The Tender Trap. Andy is a high school teacher and an avid live music fan. I've known Andy since 7th grade, and we've seen lots of concerts over the years, and 2025 was no exception. Doug Flozak is the producer and co-host of this podcast and plays bass in the band Wrought Iron Soul. I think that is everyone on today's episode. And Eric, we'll start with you and go through your list, and people can chime in as we go along. But one thing I wanted to mention, Eric, was I really love reading your blog because it's actually written by you, a person.
Non-AI created review or something.
God, if I, especially on LinkedIn, I can't bear to read another AI generated post. It's just brutal. So I love your voice of your pieces, your point of view, your opinions. You cover TV, film, albums, concerts, you interview musicians, you do remembrances of celebrities, etc. You have a newsletter too, right?
Thank you so much, Charles. Yeah, it's just really me sharing my thoughts on all things pop culture. It's greensparty.tumblr.com. And I've been doing it a few years now, and I've gotten to review albums and concerts. So yeah, sometimes I just get opportunities to review some concerts. And then because I've gotten to that point, if I don't get a press pass, sometimes that question comes up: how bad do I want to see them? How much am I willing to pay? And those sort of questions I'm sure we all have, how far are you willing to drive? Those sort of questions. So I've always been a music geek and stuff. And I think this podcast you do, I think is great hearing people's personal memories and stories and getting to do this. I was part of last year's Year in Review. And I think every year for live music changes. It's all about the number of really great bands that are touring and the number of great concerts you yourself get to see and everything like that. So yeah, it was another good year of live music and everything. So I guess we'll jump right into it, Charles.
Yeah, and I think too, you're working on a documentary right now too, right, Eric? You can't say what it is.
It's kind of too early for me to say, but it is based in the world of music. So I'm happy to come back on the show once we have a formal announcement. But yes, I've gotten to talk to some really cool people this year. And I wish I could say more to you right now, Charles, but there'll be some news in 2026 for sure.
Cool. Yeah. So why don't we start with Close Enemies, January 10th at City Winery in Boston.
In 2024, Aerosmith announced that they were retiring as a touring live band. That kind of meticulously phrased that to leave the door open for recording or for one-off concerts. But since then, the members have kind of done their own thing. So yes, January 10th, I got to go to City Winery Boston to see this band Close Enemies. It's the side project of Aerosmith bassist Tom Hamilton. And this was kind of a cool concert because there wasn't anything released. There wasn't any albums released, barely any recordings. It was just announced, hey, Close Enemies featuring Tom Hamilton. That was it. So it was really kind of going in blind and learning about the music. And they did a few covers of Aerosmith songs here. And there was other band members. One of the guys from the Babies was in the band too. They did one of their songs. But really, it was just the excitement of, hey, a new supergroup, go see them. And yeah, so I got to go to that. And I do enjoy seeing bands at City Winery just because it's more of a smaller space. I know we have people all over the country, and I know it's a national chain of music venues and stuff, but it's always cool to see a band in that setting. So that was a really great show. And then March 10th, I went to the Wilbur Theater in Boston to see Kim Deal. I had previously seen Kim Deal with both the Pixies and the Breeders. And in late 24, she released a solo album. And so this is really cool that it was her front and center performing, and not just performing what you would expect from her with a band and everything, but also seeing kind of string instruments and brass instruments behind her and everything. And she did some covers of Breeders songs and covers, but she did some of her songs. And even though she's from Ohio, the Pixies were a Boston band, so there was a lot of hometown love for her returning to Boston and everything. So it was really cool to see her front and center. And I've loved the times I've seen her with the Breeders and with the Pixies. So this was a really cool experience to see her do the solo album on tour. And then let's see, I actually kind of had a drought for a few months. And then June 26th, I went to City Winery Boston. I saw Benmont Tench, who is most famous for being the keyboardist for Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. And he's done guest appearances with, I don't even know how many artists, the Rolling Stones, Johnny Cash, or Bob Dylan, the list goes on. But he had released a solo album and was doing this solo tour. And this really reminded me a lot of the old VH1 Storytellers show where somebody would perform and tell a story before each song. So he did, a few Heartbreaker songs. He did some covers. He did a Velvet Underground. He did a whole bunch of other stuff. But it was really cool seeing him. And I got to talk to him very briefly after the show. And that was really cool. It's cool when a backing band can sometimes be thankless. It's the star of the band was Tom Petty, but I think credit where credit's due. There was a lot of really keyboard and piano driven songs in Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, and Benmont Tench was the secret weapon. So it was really cool seeing him do a solo show there. Then on July 23rd, I went to Brighton Music Hall in Boston. I saw Chevy Metal. This was a side group of the late, great Taylor Hawkins. When he wasn't in Foo Fighters, he had a lot of side projects, and one of them was this group Chevy Metal, a trio that just did a lot of classic rock covers. And after he died in 2022, I guess their future was uncertain, and they decided to tour this past year with Shane Hawkins, Taylor's son, who's now 19. And I had seen him do a few guest appearances with Foo Fighters. And so he toured with Chevy Metal, and that was great because they don't really have original songs. It was all classic rock, Black Sabbath, Van Halen, The Police, all music that Taylor was very much inspired by. And now seeing him pass the baton to his son was really a beautiful thing because he's actually a really great drummer too. So that was terrific to see that and see it at Brighton Music Hall, more of a smaller rock club than some of the other venues I had been to. Then skip ahead on August 19th, I went to the Bach Center, Wang Theater in Boston. I saw the Joe Perry Project. Getting back to what I was saying about Aerosmith and all the side projects, Joe Perry has had his side project, the Joe Perry Project, many times over the years, and the lineup always changes. And this lineup that he had for a mini tour over the summer was him with Aerosmith guitarist Brad Whitford. And it was really a cool supergroup. He had Chris Robinson of the Black Crowes as the singer. He had Robert DeLeo of Stone Temple Pilots. So when they tour, it's not just Joe Perry solo songs. They do Aerosmith, they do Black Crowes, they do Stone Temple Pilots, they do Led Zeppelin, they did a whole bunch of stuff. And getting back to what I was saying, Charles, about how bad do you want to see this? I didn't get a press pass, but I managed to score a ticket. Was it StubHub? Something. Under $40, I got to go, and I was so excited about that. And that lineup was really great. I am glad I got to go to that one. And then on August 23rd, I went to the Xfinity Center in Mansfield, Massachusetts. This venue will always be known as Great Woods to me. It's changed names many times over the years. It's an outdoor shed, and it's in Mansfield, Massachusetts, about an hour outside Boston. Growing up as a teenager in suburbia, you thought nothing of going there. It was just like, oh, that's where the band's playing. I'm going to go there. But now that I live in Boston and bands come to Boston, I got to really ask myself, how bad do I want to go all the way to Mansfield or somewhere else? But I got press passes. I got to go see Billy Idol and Joan, Jett, and the Blackhearts toured together. And both of them obviously started with bands, Generation X, and then Runaways, and became superstars on their own in the MTV era in the early 80s, and have continued to do really great work since. And I actually had not seen either artist in concert up until now. So getting to go, that was really great. Joan Jett is obviously fantastic. And then Billy Idol came out. He had Steve Stevens, his longtime guitarist, with him, and that was cool. He took front and center stage a few times. He did his score, his theme song from Top Gun there, and he did a few other hits too. And I think both artists have been doing this long enough. They give the audience what they want. They sprinkle in some new songs that they've had, and then play their classic hits and everything. So that was really a fun, made me feel like it was 1984 all over again concert. Yeah. And then let's see, September 14th, I went to Roadrunner Boston and saw Wet Leg. And yeah, of all the bands that have emerged in the last 5-6 years, I'd say they're definitely one of the best out there. I was a huge fan of their debut album, and I got to review their second album that came out this past summer. And when they toured, yeah, I got to go to Roadrunner and see them. And yeah, that was packed. I don't know if it was exactly sold out, but it may as well have been.
Yeah, the one in Chicago, I went to see them at the Salt Shed. That was sold out, and yeah, they were fantastic.
Yeah, I was going to say the first album, I think I've listened to that, I don't even know how many times, but the second album is really a grower. It's really growing on me, and I thought they were great as a live act. Chicago was a great show, too.
Yeah, it was awesome. And yeah, the nice thing about the Salt Shed, too, is it was sold out, but they don't really overpack the place, so it wasn't like crazy up, because we were right like up front on the rail for that one, and it was nice. But yeah, they were super entertaining and just great to see live.
They're funny too.
Yes.
They have a really interesting sense of humor.
Yeah. A lot of lyrical play on words and things like that. Did you see them, Jessica?
No, I didn't, but I listened to this great radio station in New York. It's called 107.1 The Peak. It's an adult alternative station, and that's the morning DJ's favorite band. And he has literally had no sleep, where he'll just go to the concert at Madison Square Garden or Barclays, and he'll just come the next day, and I was like, I saw Wet Leg. So I'm very familiar with the music, and they're a very talented bunch of girls. That's cool that you both saw them this year. And they were nominated Best New Artist a few years ago at the Grammys, so I think that helped too, because they're a kind of rock where you can't tell if they're for a younger generation or just all rock fans, and they just click all the boxes for everybody.
I definitely interpreted an influence of Elastica and Liz Phair and that kind of thing, but then I think the modern generation would think, oh, this is our band. They're in their 20s or whatever it is, and they're speaking to us. Yeah, no, absolutely. And yeah, then on September 21st, I went to Sonia in Cambridge, Massachusetts, and saw Shonen Knife. The last time I saw them was in 2016. They played a show in Boston the day after the presidential election, I just felt like seeing them on a bill. It was three all-female or female-fronted bands just sticking it to the man, and that was exactly what I needed that day. And then seeing Joan and I've come back and playing there, and they've been around 40-something years, and they were great. They're a band I've actually learned more about over time. I never had, the 90s or something. I've slowly gotten more and more into them, and I've actually gotten to interview one of the members. I've gotten to review some of their albums and stuff, and there's a pop element to their punk rock that's really fun to see live. And then on October 18th, I went to Royale in Boston, and I got to see Jeff Tweedy. And I've gotten to cover Wilco a little bit, some of their albums and some of Jeff Tweedy's solo stuff. And the last time I had seen him was in 2008. Wilco was at Madison Square Garden opening for Neil Young. And at the time, Jeff Tweedy brought out his son, who was only about, 12 at the time. And now I bring that up because now in this tour, both his sons are now grown and in their 20s, and they're part of his band. And that's such a great passing the torch thing to see, that Jeff Tweedy is such a skilled singer-songwriter and really putting together this great band of all musicians, that he made some reference to how he's known everyone in his band since they were small children or earlier. And it was really great to see. I think his new triple album is off the charts, and he's always such a skilled instrumentalist and singer. So it was really great to see him. Charles, did you see him as well?
I saw them at the Salt Shed inside, and we were real close to the stage for that one too. And he was great. He played so many songs, and like you were saying, Eric, the musicians were all significantly younger than him, because he said that he knew them all as children when they were growing up and stuff, and then his two sons. So it was really cool how an artist of his stature could put together that kind of band with these young people. It was really cool.
Absolutely. So then on November 8th, I was in New York City. I went to this venue called Racket. I believe they're a Bowery Presents venue, and I saw Throwing Muses, who I had actually never seen before. I'm actually a little bit more familiar with a former member, Tanya Donnelly. I'm more familiar with her post-Throwing Muses music she did with like Belly and her solo stuff. So I definitely have an appreciation for Throwing Muses, but my friend was a bigger fan, so went, and they were really impressive, really great, especially in that venue, sort of a mid-size club. It was really great to see them, and definitely good when I feel like I'm the youngest person in the audience.
Did you take the train down to New York City?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I drove down. I was in New York for a weekend. My friend lives in Queens, and then after we were finished working on a project, we went that night. Then, the subway to get to Chelsea. Yeah, it was in Chelsea. Yeah.
Was that the first time you've been to that venue then, Eric?
Yeah, it's relatively new. Jessica, I don't know if you know much about Racket.
I haven't actually, and I know I'm pretty familiar with some of the venues in Manhattan, so I'm wondering if it could have been maybe under a different name, or maybe it could have just been one of those secret places.
A speakeasy to get into.
Exactly.
Yeah, from what I understand, it's somewhat of a new venue. I don't know if it changed names or ownership or something recently, but it's right there by Chelsea Market, that general area.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. It's nice over there.
Yeah, so it was a decent size. I don't know the exact capacity, but maybe, 1,500 or so, maybe 1,000 capacity. It was pretty cool going there. And I lived in New York for many years, and so it was cool to get to incorporate New York into my annual concert list, as opposed to just what's nearby and stuff. And I think you've talked about this a lot on your podcast, Charles, the act of traveling, like a destination concert. Hey, my big trip this year is this festival or this show that isn't playing in my area or something like that. So I think that can be exciting. That wasn't exactly what this was. This was more like a afterwards, hey, let's go. All right, great kind of thing. And that was a lot of fun. But I think it can be fun to go to a new venue in a new city that you haven't been to before and that kind of thing. So looking back, I thought it was a pretty good year. In the past, I've also incorporated, in addition to clubs, stadium shows. There wasn't any real big or go home, Metallica, Foo Fighters, or any of these other kind of shows. But I thought it was a pretty good year. Looking ahead to next year, obviously we're not even into 2026 yet, or whenever this airs. But I think fingers are crossed. Radiohead did a European tour, and I'm hoping that they will do a US tour. I saw them last in 2018, and I would love it if they could just fit in even a mini tour or something into the US. That would be amazing. So that's my hope prediction for next year.
Yeah. And I was thinking the same thing, Eric. It's like I've never seen them. And from what I was reading, it was the first tour they'll do without releasing any new music.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't care. I want to see them. It would have no bearing on whether or not I would go. So, yeah, I'm hoping as well that they'll stop in Chicago or have a North American tour of some sort.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Anybody have any follow-up questions for Eric before we move on?
No, I'm with Eric where the whole thing of I just going to smaller shows this last year seemed to be the thing that really resonated, where I'm just liking the smaller places over the bigger ones, even though, yeah, I had a couple of destinations ones I'll talk about, but it's just the smaller spaces are just seeming so much more accommodating to me now, especially this year, it seemed.
Yeah, for sure. And Andy will talk about it, but we went early this year to see Mdu Mokhtar at this place in Evanston called Space, Evanston, Illinois. I'd never been there before. And Andy and I think we paid like $35 a ticket or something. And the place holds, I think, 300 people. It's one of those places that has tables and then there's standing room. And we were so close to the band. Like I felt like I was getting away with something. Like, I can't believe I only paid like 30 some dollars and I'm standing like 15 feet away from these guys. Because we'd seen them the year before at I think it was Thalia Hall, maybe, Andy. And it was the bigger venue, not a huge place, but yeah. So the small clubs, man. And Dawn, I'm sure you'll talk about that a little bit, but yeah. And I'd never been to a City Winery either. So this was the first time I saw the Bodines a few weeks ago at the City Winery, it's very similar to Space, tables and such. If you guys have been a City Winery,
it's sort of like Garcia's, Charles. Again, it was just a killer new venue that we're lucky to have it here in Chicago.
Yeah, Garcia's was awesome too, along the same line. So we'll let Andy talk about that one. All right, Jessica, you went to a few things here on your list, and I'd like to just point out with your podcast, I always enjoy it because there's always these dots that get connected no matter what artist you're reviewing. I always get more information than I thought I would out of listening to certain artists and how they're related to all these other people and songs and et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, definitely check out Music Notes with Jess podcast when you can. So you went to see this jazz musician, right?
So, first of all, thank you, Charles and Doug, for inviting me back to seeing them live. I always have a blast talking with you guys here and off air, so I appreciate the support you've given, not only me, but also my podcast, Music Notes with Jess. And I got inspired last year where I definitely wanted to attend more concerts, and I was lucky to attend 3 this year. And we know the going gag where anytime I would go to a concert, it'd be raining. So this time, all 3 concerts were indoors. And so that way they could actually happen this year for me. And I have to say, they were all pretty special. And they happened to also go along with family each time, which was cool. So the first concert I went to was with my uncle. We went to go see jazz singer Samara Joy. She's a young jazz singer from the Bronx, which is where my parents grew up. And that's where most of my family still lives in. And my uncle had gotten an email from this venue called Ridgefield Playhouse where he got a markdown ticket price if he wanted to go. So he originally bought 2 for he and my aunt, but my aunt couldn't make it last minute. So he texted me, being that I was familiar with Connecticut. I used to work at the radio stations near there. And so we went instead. And the funny part is when I was telling him how to get there, because he actually lives right across from when I went to my first festival in Dutchess County. He was commuting about an hour away. So I gave him a heads up and I said, why don't we get some dinner? Because where the venue is, the lobby is very tight and they only open the doors when it's time to sit down and the show is going to start. So first we go to the barbecue restaurant and it was delicious. And then we walk into the venue and don't you know that they renovated where we didn't have to worry about standing so close to each other, standing room only, but it was beautiful. I want to shout out Ridgefield Playhouse because they're a nonprofit And the way that they get these celebrities come, it's just incredible. They just go by the hard work of their staff, and they depend upon the sponsorships of local businesses to just stay afloat. And they had their 25th anniversary this year. And as a thank you for the business, they renovated the lobby where they opened it up into a lounge where you can sit before the show starts. And they also displayed some of the artifacts of artists who've been there. So it's almost like a museum when you first walk in, and then go see these comedians and singers and all these different acts that they get. It's really incredible. I highly recommend going there. So, where my uncle and I sat, what they did was, for anybody who wants to try to get a ticket there, you don't have to worry about burning a hole in your wallet anymore. They actually set it up where you go to the upper mezzanine, they give you real chairs, and you're able to see the stage so nice. I felt like I was standing up looking over at the stage, and I was literally all the way in the back row. And it was such a really nice time. I really like Samara Joy's band, the way that they were just cooperative with each other, just musically. Everybody had a solo, and they were just all very cohesive the way that they performed. It was a really nice concert and very quick. I was out by 8 o'clock, and I couldn't believe it was just her performing, but it was perfect. And it was a nice, just one-on-one with my uncle too. So it was a nice bonded time for the two of us for the first concert that I went to this year.
Yeah, didn't she win or is nominated for a Grammy Award for Best Jazz Vocal Album or something like that?
Yeah, in fact, she actually won Best New Artist a few years ago at the Grammys.
Okay.
And that's where I first heard about her. But yeah, she keeps doing very well. They keep awarding her with these jazz albums. And now she wants to take the time where she's going back locally to New York and Connecticut, because now she's homesick. So this was like a nice kind of start for her to do that for herself.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it sounds like a great venue too.
It's great.
So then you saw this Moulin Rouge, July 26th.
Yeah, so I think this might be like my first cheating where I'm putting in a Broadway show instead of a concert, but
Okay.
I have a reason for that. This occasion that I went, my cousin had got married this year, and I was in her bridal party, and Uncle who I just talked about, his daughter was the maid of honor. And she couldn't make it to go with the Moulin Rouge crew with us because she was also planning the bridal shower the next day. So the rest of us went, and my cousin's future mother-in-law and sister-in-law, they joined us, which was a nice kind of part of a celebration to make for the weekend. We went to go see Moulin Rouge, and my cousin is a huge fan of Broadway, and usually I'm okay with it. Sometimes I feel like they exaggerate a little bit too much, but I love the movie Moulin Rouge. So I was thinking, at least they have the can-can dancers. They could definitely shake up the music. And the cool thing that I saw was they actually modernized the music compared to what's in the movie. They do have some of the songs that they do, the rock stuff, but then they also threw in Katy Perry, Walk the Moon, CeeLo Green. So that I thought was a nice twist. And as most Broadway shows are doing now, they have celebrity appearances where you see them certain days. The show that I saw, I actually had two celebrities that I saw guest star. Wayne Brady was the owner of the Club Herald, and he rocked it. I'm a huge fan of his. I've watched him on Whose Line Is It Anyway for years, and his improv was just perfect. I'm hoping he's get nominated a Tony next year because he was fantastic. And then the second star who was there was Taye Diggs. He plays Benny in Rent, and he's done a couple of acting movies as well. And he played the Duke, the villain. And he usually has that kind of role whenever you see him acting in. And he did very good. I felt specifically because he's the big star on Broadway as he is, it seemed like they may have rewritten the script a little bit more so you could see more of him act. Because if you've seen the movie Moulin Rouge, they really don't show the Duke so much. They just have him as an antagonist where he's just so needed because of his money trying to save the club. And so that was a nice touch that I appreciated, and my cousin did too as a Broadway fan. And the cool twist at the end. Now, I don't want to spoil Moulin Rouge, but have any of you seen the movie Moulin Rouge?
Yes.
You have. Okay. So I won't give away the ending too much, but it's not a happy one. So what they did for us to leave us all on a high note, because a lot of people were crying. I think they weren't expecting it to end the way it did. But what they did instead was when they were bringing out everybody to do curtain call, you saw Wayne Brady go stage right and all of a sudden shut off a switch and all the lights went off. And then you saw the entire ensemble come out and they all did a version of Lady Marmalade so that everybody could just have fun and sing along and we could all just leave happy and not so depressed. So I thought that was a beautiful touch because we really needed that kind of happiness just in general, let alone at the show.
Yeah, that's a cool twist. Yeah, I love watching that movie. My wife's a big fan, so every once in a while we'll turn it on and check it out. But yeah, it's a great movie.
It's very well done. And I think it's ahead of its time, Charles, with the way that they did the cover songs like that. No movie has really done that before. I don't think we would have Glee or any other of these movies where they could just pick rock songs, especially rock songs or any kind of those standards, and put it into something new. I always liked that twist as well.
Yeah, it's a great production. So then, Jessica, you went to this iHeartRadio Jingle Ball, and you were talking about that in your most recent episode of your podcast. You did a concert review of that.
Gee, I wonder where I got that from.
Yeah, because the last time you were at Madison Square Garden was to see George Michael. That's correct, right?
Yeah, it was 2008, so it was a long time ago since I've been there last time.
Yeah, and so that's one of your episodes. George Michael sings to Jessica, I think is a title. But yeah, so you were back for this Jingle Ball thing. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Radio does this end of the year festival called Jingle Ball, and they market it with their pop radio stations, and they go national basically. So I want to say they do about 10 shows in December where they get a lot of the singers that they played on the radio or just some Remember When artists, and then they all basically just put this big end of the year concert, and it's a blast. And it goes with a lot of their other concerts that they're trying to do just to keep radio afloat. They do an iHeartRadio Music Festival in Vegas in September. They're even doing a country one now between June and July. So I think it's great that they're trying to just get music to be heard because it's so hard to try to get people's attention with modern music. And that's why I actually base my podcast on that, because there are certain artists where once you get to hear them, you could get excited about music. You don't always just have to think, oh, this is not going to be as good. There are good ones. So I was lucky to get a chance to go to Jingle Ball. And I had an in. My mom actually works for a hospital, and they were one of the sponsors for the shows. So that's how I was able to get the tickets in an auction that she put in. And the two people I originally invited couldn't go, but I luckily had some backups. So my uncle who I spoke to before, I took her daughter and I took her best friend, and they accompanied me that night. In fact, it was just December 12th. It was practically a week ago when I just went, and it was great. It was my first indoor festival where I was just sitting the whole time, and they really moved everybody quick backstage. It was very well done, I have to say. I feel like I was part of an award show, but it was taped. ABC and Hulu are streaming a lot of the performances that I saw. The only complaint I had was that my seating that they gave me, it only faced backstage. I could not see the front of the stage. And you know how sometimes when you go to concerts, you can't see, they at least have a screen or a projector, so that way you see something. That's one good part of modern concerts, Charles, where you don't have to feel like, I can't see, who is that?
Yeah.
Well, so for me, for some reason where I was sitting, the projector was backwards. So it was facing, the screen was facing correctly for everybody front stage, but anybody in my section, it was like a mirror. We had an asymmetrical side of how we were looking on who was on stage. So basically, every act who came on, anybody who wasn't sitting closer to where we could see, we just kept shifting over so that way we could see the front of the stage of who we were trying to see. But that was the only issue I had. But they had a great amount of artists, and I should have listed the names. I didn't give you them. Did I, Charles?
No, you didn't. But who was a standout for you as far as all the people that were there?
They had Ed Sheeran. They had this jazz artist, Leve, who's very cool. They had Miles Smith, Alex Warren. They had K-pop band Monster X, and they had a sing-along for the K-pop Demon Hunters, I think they're called. And so they had a nice group of artists. They had Zara Larson, a good mix. They had Nelly, so it was a good pop mix. It had folk. It was a little bit of everything, which I like, because that's what iHeartRadio tries to do. They like to try to fill everybody where you're not just focusing on one genre. But I liked it a lot. And the Madison Square Garden, it definitely changed since the last time I was there. It was all renovated, and now it has like this beautiful food hall, and it's right above Penn Station. And that's why I asked Eric before if he took the train before, because you could take the train up from Boston or Philly, all along the east side of the U.S. You can take the train up to Penn Station, and I'm wondering if anybody goes to see shows that way. It's so convenient.
So you went to 2 places that have been renovated.
Yeah, fairly.
That's your theme for 2025.
That's right. Hey, it's better than rain. I'll take it.
Yeah, no, every time we're at a show and it's raining, I think about you. But Andy and I have these nice ponchos now from the Salt Shed that we bought during this King Gizzard show where it was like downpour. So we always bring those with if it's going to rain.
Yeah.
But are you looking forward to anything right now in 2026?
I know that there's nothing really posted yet as far as concerts, but I do have a mini announcement as far as Music Notes with Jess. I'm actually going to be changing formats into the new year, and I'm going to be changing under a different name, so that way, even though as much as I love talking about music, I've been getting a request where there's been other people who've been wanting to be on the show, and I'd love to have you and Doug back on. So
yeah, for sure.
I'm going to be just changing things a little bit where it's more conversational and I can have some wiggle room, because music definitely took a long time to get popular this year. I don't know if it was because it was political stress, or maybe it was just we had a lot of bad things happen this year, but there weren't too many people listening to music as closely, and that's where they even had to have Billboard change the charts. So that way they could have more people get a chance to be popular and say, I'm number one or anything. So a lot of inactivity. There's been a lot of extra pressure where everybody has to help each other out. So the more that we go to concerts, that's how we're just helping everybody and talking about it.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's the economy, perhaps,
It could be.
or what, but like I've noticed in the last few months, I get these notices from the Salt Shed in Chicago giving me half-price tickets, or just a lot of other venues discounting tickets, which I've never seen that before. I don't know what to make of it, but I guess it's maybe a financial thing. They're trying to get more people into the venue.
Yeah.
Because when I go to the Salt Shed and spend 35, 40, 80 bucks on a ticket, I usually spend $40 in parking and
It's a commitment.
$50 in drink. Yeah, so once they get you in there, you're going to spend like another $50, $100 on stuff, t-shirt, whatever. But yeah, that's been my observation again in the last few months with live music.
Yeah. And it's, like I said, it's very hard that people don't realize that sponsors really run a lot of, I don't want to say planning, but basically just any capability, you need money for it. So when there's short assets of that, you have to unfortunately make cuts, and you also don't want to lose the customers, plus the venue to even have these places still go. We want to make sure that they're still around. There's nothing like live concerts.
Yeah, exactly. Anybody have any questions for Jessica, the follow-up?
I'm just going to touch in, and I know she said it, like, my wife loves going to see Moulin Rouge whenever it comes through, and just to agree, they do update that set a lot with modern songs, because I was like, she went to go see it, she came back, and she was all happy, and I was like, aren't these the same songs from the movie, which were 20 years old back then? She's like, no, they incorporated this and that. I think her version had like Katy Perry, and she's like, no, I think the only song that was really in there from the original movie was maybe Lady Marmalade and one other, so... Yeah, she said they updated it a lot, so just made it a lot more current, and people had a better time with it because it was just such classic for lack of a better word, songs.
Yeah, no, that's a great idea. All right, Summer. How's it going, Summer?
Good, good. How are you?
Good. Yeah, you went to a few concerts. We went to Lollapalooza together.
Yes.
So you'll talk about that a little bit. But yeah, the first one you went to is Bridget Calls Me Baby, June 20th, 2025.
Yeah, you and I actually saw them at Lollapalooza in 2024. They were on a smaller stage on the side, and they really captured, I don't know, our interest. A lot more side stage acts that we saw last year or in 2024 than this year, to me, made a big impact. And you mentioned probably in April or May that they were coming to town to the Metro, but you guys were going to be out of town. So I actually got tickets to go with my sister. And unfortunately, the day of the concert, she wasn't feeling great. So I was left with another ticket. So I took my son. He's 16. He's been to concerts with me before, and he was a little reluctant. I think he remembered the band, but he said, you know what? The only reason I'm going to go is because I really like the bass player. He really stood out from the previous year. So we got there. It was at the Metro. Great crowd, easy to manage. We got there a little early, got in, and a couple next to us started chatting with us, and the lady asked about Warren. Why are you here? Do you like the band? Tell me a little bit more. And Warren said, yeah, I really like the bass player. I remembered him from Lala. And she's, oh, that's funny. He's my son. We met the bass player's mom and dad, and they're from Chicago, very kind. She was interested in what Warren was doing in the jazz band at high school, and he talked about playing the bass, and she said we should keep going, gave him some good words of advice, and it actually turned out to be a really inspiring and fun time. So we were excited.
There was a reason your son had to be there then.
Yeah, and now he's still in jazz band. He's actually thinking about doing jazz band in college, so I'm glad he's going to stay on that path. And then after that, we went to, the band itself was really good, by the way. They're a mix between Roy Orbison, Elvis, this mid-century Euro vibe. So I just wanted to put that out there if you guys were interested.
The lead singer's voice, incredible. I can't even describe it. You just have to hear it. Yeah, he's fantastic.
Fantastic. And then we did Lala, and we went on the Friday, August, I think, 1st. Grant Park, and saw some of the standouts for us this year, or at least for me, definitely was Joe, DJO, Foster the People. I really like them. Gigi Perez, fantastic singer-songwriter. And then Olivia Rodrigo performed final set of the night, and she brought out Weezer. I know you were going to maybe mention that in your lineup, Charles.
Oh, go ahead.
But we were packed in. I guess we did break the record for a single show, 115,000 people that night. So the record the previous year was by Chapel Rowan, but for that set, we were packed in pretty tightly. Yeah. And she brought out Weezer, and they played Buddy Holly, Say It Ain't. So it was a full circle moment for the 90s fans.
Yeah, because they took a little break, and Olivia Rodrigo starts talking about all the young faces in the crowd, and that this is probably one of their first concerts. And so she led up to it. It's cool. She's, and my first concert, I always remember that. And so they're here today. And I'm like, who's she talking about? And all of a sudden, the guys from Weezer come out, and they played those two songs with her. So that was her first concert, was seeing Weezer. So I thought that was a really cool tie-in, like what this podcast is all about, or part of it, your first concert and the impact it has on you. So yeah, that was cool. My daughter was there, and she was going crazy.
Loving recording every minute of it.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. But yeah, that was a cool surprise.
Yeah. And we were lucky. We had no oppressive heat. But Charles was a little under the weather. The next morning, he texted, you were COVID positive.
Oh, no. Sorry to hear that.
I didn't have any symptoms or anything, but I was just feeling really tired.
Well, it's funny you said that, because as I was leaving Jingle Ball a few days later, I emailed you, Charles, that I had the flu. And I'm pretty sure it came from the concert. But my guests weren't sick, so it must have been, just one of those things where we got a spec. It got us.
That was all good. It was a good show. We saw lots of bands, and like summer, you're saying the weather was not oppressive, hot, and humid like it usually is in Chicago.
I'm glad. I was wondering about that. Being out there as long, the hours.
It's a long day, but people are like, oh, I've gone all 4 days. I need a steady drip of ibuprofen. There's no way I could do 4 days of that.
No, never.
It's a commitment. But yeah, you saw this guy, Youngblood, at the Riviera.
The Riviera, I saw them with my cousin and her husband. She was more into him than me. And then I got to know him a little bit more as all the press came out about Ozzy's tribute concert in July before he passed. Youngblood did a final show tribute with the song Changes. And it's actually nominated for a Grammy for Best Rock Performance. So that's exciting. And they came to Chicago and it was packed. We had a little tussle with one of the girls in the crowd. I'm not like big into keeping my space or anything like that, but this girl was just like in a panic. Don't get into my area. This is my space. And like, this is the wrong place for that.
Especially that club. If you're on the main floor, good luck. It's like a sardine can in there.
Yeah.
It's packed.
And I guess I got too close, and another girl got too close, and she got into our face and started screaming. I'm like, I'm too old for this. This is ridiculous. And my cousin's about a foot taller than me, and she got in her face, and then her husband came and broke it up, and we moved out of the way. We're like, we got to get away from this girl. Too much. It didn't really distract from the great show he put on. Fantastic performer, great vocals. He's this mix between punk, rock, very much a showman. So hopefully we'll see more of him in the years coming. And then the last concert we went to, my cousin and I again got tickets to go see at the Lyric Opera of Chicago, A Night of Melancholy and the Infinite Sadness. It was actually the night of the big snowstorm that happened. So we were a little worried about getting downtown and ended up getting a hotel to stay after, just because we didn't want to drive during this winter storm advisory that was there. It was a good show. It was a little unexpected. I've never personally seen an opera in person, and I guess it wasn't technically a true opera. It was more of a tribute with operatic performances. They had a live chorus, a symphony orchestra, and then Billy Corgan did come out for about 5 songs where he did the vocals along with the operatic singers. So it was interesting. Now, my cousin, she recognized every single song, and maybe I just hadn't listened to that album because it's the 2-part album. And so it was a little bit difficult to correlate the songs with the actual pieces, but overall, it was a pretty stunning interpretation. I thought it was worth it. And just a night in the city with a good friend, and we were able to have a hotel night without the kids, and so it was worth it.
Cool. So yeah, I was wondering how he interacted with that whole production. So he sang like a handful of songs with them.
He came out, he sang, people applauded, that they were super excited. A lot of people dressed up for not only the opera, but then they had their old Smashing Pumpkins gear on. It was a good mix of like young and older people. Yeah, it was fun. It was a good time.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. Any follow-up questions for Summer on any of that?
So I've been getting really into Youngblood. I think it's so cool that you saw him live, and the tribute he did for Ozzy Osbourne at the VMAs, they even had Eddie Trunk saying, wow, like this kid is amazing. And for him to bring out Joe Perry and Steven Tyler out on stage and do this new album that they just did together, I really want to believe that Aerosmith wants to be back on tour and on stage, but just for him to have this big moment in 2025, you really witnessed history this year, Summer.
Yay! I hope so. It was a great show.
All right, Art, let's talk about your list. I was looking at the 3 shows that you attended, and it looks like you started with Burton Cummings in July.
Burton Cummings in July.
Was he the lead singer of the Guess Who, I guess?
He's lead singer. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Him and Randy Bachman, those were the guys for the Guess Who. And Randy Bachman, when they split up, started Bachman Turner Overdrive.
Yeah.
Which had a lot of great hits when I was in high school. But Burton Cummings with the Guess Who. Chuck, I had a stereo when I was in high school, and I had a phonograph when I was in 7th and 8th grade. And I was listening to the Guess Who on my alarm clock radio like I was in 5th or 6th grade.
Okay.
And since that long, and I listened to them until they split up. And they were always one of my favorite bands. And I couldn't believe he was touring. He did all the hits. I almost knew every song I can sing along with it.
Sure.
Yeah. And what was really funny was I was in the lobby of the theater on the phone, and this little guy walks across in front of me, stops, and is talking to somebody. And he's got a Midnight Special t-shirt on. And I didn't think anything of it. And I go, hey, cool t-shirt. So the concert starts, and it's Burton Cummings. I didn't even recognize him. He's this little dude. He's in his 70s, but I didn't even recognize him. I'm used to see him on stage at the Midnight Special or Don Kirshner's rock concert, and I would talk to him, but I did not recognize him. I didn't know who he was. So anyway, he played the songs, and he was great. He did all the hits. I don't know if you know the Guess Who. The big hit was These Eyes. That was the first one. And then all the American Woman. He did everything. And it was a great concert. I was sitting up in the balcony because I found out about the concert later, and they only had a few tickets. And that venue, there's no bad seats. So.
Yeah, that's the North Shore Center for Performing Arts in, I believe, Skokie, Illinois.
In Skokie, right.
I looked up the capacity. It's, I don't know, 860 people or something. So
yeah,
still pretty small size. A great place to see someone, you know.
Oh, yeah. And I mean, I guess he's touring with Randy Bachman before the holidays in Canada. The band is from Canada, and he got together with them, and they were doing some concerts. That's almost like one of my bucket lists to do all those great songs from the 60s, late 60s, early 70s.
Yeah, no, that's hilarious. Yeah, you're standing right next to the guy, but yeah, he's how many years older than when you were following him and seeing him, you know? It's like we all might be a little unrecognizable.
Yeah.
To someone that's seen us in 30 years or whatever.
But I was listening to him on my alarm clock radio in 5th or 6th grade. That's just, yeah.
Now you guys go way back, right?
Yeah. Anyway.
And Art, I know when we interviewed you last time, I think you were a guest on season 1. Right?
Yeah.
You were at the infamous Led Zeppelin show on 1977, April 10th, I think it was, maybe, where Jimmy Page could not finish the show.
He couldn't finish the show. He had to bring a chair out because he was very wasted.
That's a great episode. If people want to check it out, Jimmy Page calls in sick, and Art can tell you all about Jimmy Page and that whole thing. And we'll get to a little bit of Led Zeppelin stuff here in just a second with this other band you saw. But if we go in chronological order, I think you saw Michael Schenker. Yeah.
Yeah, Michael Schenker. You know, I saw him a couple years ago on my birthday over at the Des Plaines Theater, and he had 2 shows over there this last year, and it was my 50 years with UFO. So he did all UFO songs. He had a lead singer that was great. I can't remember his name, but UFO and Led Zeppelin are probably my favorite bands, you know, and I got to see part of them, both the bands this last year. Yeah, it was sold out. I believe it was sold out both nights.
I think when we talked the last time, we had determined that for some reason UFO is a real big following in Chicago. They had huge fan base in Chicago because he was part of the Scorpions, right?
Yeah, it's the 3rd time I've seen him solo. And one time at the House of Blues, he did Scorpions, Michael Schenker Group, and UFO. And then last time, it was just my 50 years of UFO. No other songs, not even one of my favorite songs from Michael Schenker is Armed and Ready. And he didn't even do his own stuff. It was all UFO songs.
Huh. That sounds interesting. I think I'd mentioned before I saw UFO, like early 80s, I think, like when I was in high school. Yeah, that was a crazy show. It was awesome.
One of my favorite concerts was the UFO warming up for Foghat at the Aragon Ballroom. And UFO just come out with their Lights Out album, and Foghat came out with their Fool for the City album, which are two of my favorite albums. But that was a great concert.
Yeah, Fool for the City. I had that album. I love that album. That must have been a great show at the Aragon. That's a small venue.
Yeah.
Art, your last show was, and this must have been a hard ticket to get, I would imagine, Robert Plant at the Vic Theater in Chicago on November 12th, I think.
Yes. Let me give you a little background on how I got the ticket, because I'm pinching myself because of it. I was on Instagram, just fumbling around on Instagram, and I see this little gal with a picture of her and Robert Plant, and said, well, my bucket list, I get to play with Robert Plant. And I'm like, play with Robert Plant? What are you talking about? So I Google Robert Plant, and it turns out he's on tour, right? And I go, well, let's see. When's he going to come to Chicago? It was 10 o'clock, and he's playing Chicago the next day. Okay. And I'm like, how am I going to get tickets? Oh, man. So I got on StubHub. I've never used StubHub before. I got ninth row.
Yeah. Wow.
It was an amazing concert, and I paid up for it. I figured I might never, ever get to do this again. I paid probably 3 or 4 times the face value of the ticket. Anyway, he's got an album called Amazing Grace, and he did a lot of songs off of there. The third song, he did Ramblin' On, and I've never seen a standing ovation ever at any of my concerts. The standing ovation, people jumped out of their seat and were like, it's like seeing the Beatles. I was like,
yeah,
it was amazing. And one of the gals in his band, Susie Dion, who he did a lot of solo duets with, she stood there and she was like, you could see the amazement on her face. And she's in the band.
Yeah.
And she was, oh my God, these people are just like nuts over this guy. And for real. Yeah. Anyway, they did a lot of songs off his new album and 6 Led Zeppelin songs. I saw him at Ravinia, and he did Black Dog, but he gave a different slow version of it. Man, he did Ramblin' On, 4 Sticks, Friends. The Encore, he started out with the Rain song, and then he went into Gallows Pole.
Oh, man, that's just like one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs.
Yeah. And then he stopped in the middle of Gallows Pole and started Black Dog. I mean, this was just crazy. He would sing the Black Dog. You go, hey, mama said the way you move. And then he pointed the microphone at us, and we'd sing the other lyrics.
Okay.
Said the way you moved is going to make you sweat, going to make you groove. And then he sang the next verse, and then we sang that next one. I mean, that was one of the best concerts, I can tell you. Anyway.
And that place is so small. It's not a big venue. That must have been great, because you sent me some pictures, and I was like, man, Art, you must have been really close.
You know what? The Vic, usually when you go to a concert, they don't put seats down, but they put seats down. I was in row J, which is like 9th row. And yeah, I was really close. It was great. When he went on stage, it was exhilarating just to see the guy walk up on stage,
Yeah.
Anyway, for me, it was probably like seeing Elvis, so.
Right. You get your Led Zeppelin fix again from the source, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. That's cool. You got anything 2026 Art yet that you're kind of thinking about?
If Guns N' Roses make it, I'd go see them again over at Wrigley Field. But maybe Led Zeppelin 2. We'll see. They'll be at the House of Blues soon. Yeah. But yeah, that's it for now. So how about yourself?
Yeah, I checked new venues, which I'd never been to, like Space up in Evanston.
Okay.
Yeah, I mentioned we went to see Mdu Mokhtar, this band from Niger, an acoustic set. He's a phenomenal guitar player, usually electric. So in this iteration of it, they had tables, like a seat at a table, and it's right up on the stage. It holds 300 people. And we bought standing room tickets, which we were amazingly close. Then this past weekend, I went to see this band, Old 97s, also at Space. And they had no tables. So it was just all standing room, which was still really cool. But it's a neat place to see a band up close. It's, again, 300 capacity, but those were both fantastic shows. And then I went to this thing called Moto Blot. Have you ever been to the Beat Kitchen?
I was at the Beat Kitchen 40 years ago when it was almost like a little dive bar. Yeah.
Still, there's a bar up front and then the stage in the back, but I'd never seen a show there. And it was mostly like female bands or female fronted bands. And they usually had 2 or 3 nights at the Beat Kitchen. But then this past year, they had one night at the Beat Kitchen and then the other night at the Salt Shed outside. They had some pretty big names as well. And then that was June 27th. And then the next night, I went to the Rialto Square Theater to see Buddy Guy.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Which was nuts. At the time, he was a month away from his 89th birthday.
Wow.
I swear, if you closed your eyes, you could not tell the difference that he was going to be 89 years old or he was going to be 40 years old. Towards the end of the concert, he came down the stage and the venue, the main floor, it's all seats, an old movie theater where it has aisles on either side and then seats to the right and left of that. He comes down the aisle, the far aisle, and we have aisle seats, but on the other side, and he walks down playing guitar.
Yeah.
He goes into the lobby, back out, and comes right down. He's right next to us playing guitar. And there was this older guy in front of us, and he went up to him and had him like strum the guitar. This is happening right in front of my wife and I, like right at our seat.
Oh my gosh.
It was insane.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments where the dumb luck, we just happened to be sitting on the aisle and he was right there. It was really cool.
He's an icon.
And then I went to a City Winery show. I'd never been there before. Saw the Bodines. And previously I saw the band Dogs in a Pile at Garcia's, which I guess Jerry Garcia's daughters either gave permission to use the name or they're part owners or something. Very similar to City Winery as far as the vibe. It's got tables mostly, some standing room, also kind of like that Space Place in Evanston. So if you see somebody playing Garcia's, highly recommend going there. It's a beautiful place, very nice inside. It's a great bar, and the sight lines are all, it's like terraced, so the front of the stage is lowest, and it goes up like 4 terraced sections. My friends and I in high school were big Iron Maiden fans.
Oh, sure.
So Iron Maiden, they're coming back to play the Credit Union One Amphitheater, which was the Tweeter Center back in the day. It's in September, so I got some good tickets to see Iron Maiden. Some of my buddies from when high school are going to come with.
Oh, sure. I'd go to that one. I've seen them before. Yeah.
Yeah, oh my God, they put on an incredible show. I mean, it's like one of those bands where you don't really even have to be an Iron Maiden fan to be like blown away by it. They're fantastic.
I heard just from a couple people on my satellite radio that 9 Inch Nails has an unbelievable show. I don't know if they're coming to Chicago though, but I'd go check that out.
Yeah, I saw them on the first Lollapalooza. Yeah, that was, God, the date of that now, 91 or something, 90. Yeah, early 90s. I hear they still put on a great show. And what's you mentioned 9 Inch Nails now. My wife's favorite band is the Psychedelic Furs. And I mentioned this earlier here. Gary Newman, who has that song Cars.
Oh, I saw him 2 years ago. Yeah. He warmed up for Ministry.
I had no idea. I read later after the show because I'm like, he sounds just like 9 Inch Nails. Yeah. And the guy is in such great shape for like 67 years old. He's running around and jumping and doing all this stuff, but he was not expecting that kind of a show.
I was really surprised too. He was really, really good.
Yeah. I could see a matchup with the Ministry and the Gary Newman's Our song. But yeah, I don't know. Just so many concerts, Art, and a lot of times not enough time. I think we all have to pick and choose. Get out and see live music, right? Whenever you can.
Love, peace, and rock and roll.
That's right. Thanks for sharing your list. And something pops up, man, send me a text. I might tag along with you. All right, Art. Thanks.
Sounds good. Thanks, Jeff.
Well, that's it for part 1. Make sure to join us for part 2 and hear Dawn talk about her trip on a private jet with the Rolling Stones, Andy's disastrous experience at Bonnaroo, and Steve's 2025 concert review. That's a wrap for our show. I want to thank today's guests for sharing their concert stories with us. Make sure to check out our show notes at seeingthemlive.com for links to websites, photos, and other artifacts mentioned in the show. I also want to thank my producer, Doug Flozak. The theme music for the show was composed by Doug and is featured on his album, Flagstone. If you have a concert story you'd like to share on our podcast, please visit our website and click on Become a Guest in the main menu. Then fill out the form and click the Submit button. If you seem like a good fit for the show, we'll contact you via email. I guess it's time to head for the exits. We'll see you next time on Seeing Them Live.